So, today in Network Journal Club we have Peter Dodds from University of Vermont. I first saw his name when he and Watts and Cosenz was the third one.
Rabi Muhammad, actually. Yeah.
Oh, did an email version of the Milgram experiment, and I've also, I guess the other papers of Peter's that I know the best are we're doing low tech because this stuff is not quite set up yet. So gather around close.
Okay.
It's an awesome building though, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I've seen Peter's done a lot of work on complex contagions is the other stuff that I'm most familiar with. Although, like many networks people, he does not come from networks.
Is that true? Yeah.
The river stuff's not. It's networks, but that's not what you did with it. Okay. So anyway,
well, we can talk about that. Yeah.
We can talk about that, but let's.
Where do I come from? I actually come from, accidentally just doing lots of math, basically.
Yeah, I'm for that.
Yeah. My background is a lot of stat mech. It was Melbourne Uni in Australia, and electrical engineering, which I just I did a 6-year undergrad because I didn't know what else to do. So it's by way of apology.
That's all right. My apologies for the room not being ready.
Yeah, but so that's my background. But then I spent many years working on earth science problems, but I was still in math, technically at MIT. And then I was at Columbia for 6 years working with Duncan Watts. And so it was sort of like a PhD in social sciences, really. We were in the social sciences, so we were embedded. Now I'm actually back in a math department, but I'm director of a complex systems center, and we run all sorts of things. So I try not to think of those boxes too much. I guess I'm all right. This is the screen.
You want to share?
No, it's okay.
Just share.
I could just sit down, yeah.
Sit down.
I like walking around.
Yeah, I know.
I'm kind of a...
I was looking forward to getting that to work. But
no, it's totally all right. It's kind of funny. So I have a whole bunch of things. All right, so these guys are in charge of making these slides. I have 2 girls, so they are with us on this trip, and we're having a lot of fun traveling around London. So we have a really lovely team. I actually work in concert with this fellow, Chris Danforth. We co-run what we call a computational story lab. We're now at the University of Vermont. We have a whole bunch of students who are going off to do all sorts of interesting things, and yeah, so it's fun. This is sort of a little history of my work. I'm not going to go through all of this, but there's some river network stuff up here, and there's contagion and more of this happiness stuff. I know this is a networks club, but I'll be talking about measuring other things today.
We're happy actually with any sort of complex systems.
Okay, that's good. And there'll be various apologies about how this works. But yeah, so I'll be talking about this stuff, some of the happiness stuff, some of this stuff will pop up as well. All right, so lots of things going on. Yeah, right. Okay, so I had this in here. I like to throw this out sometimes because just to abuse economics. So it's Greenspan. So I've been doing these big. This was a television interview a few years ago, right? So now it's actually it's 6 years ago. Been dealing with these big models. If you can figure out how to determine whether people are fearful, right, or changing to more euphoric, I wouldn't need these models. This is a bit of a strong claim, obviously, but I could forecast the economy better than anybody I know. And then he goes on with this. Trouble is, we're no good at that, right? We've been doing it for 50 years. He's no better. Nobody else is any good. Blah blah blah. That's the same as, which is a bit of a strong statement, but there you go. And then he claims it's because human nature hasn't changed. So this is actually, we can't improve ourselves. This is actually on the Jon Stewart show. It was a great interview, which if you can click on all these links and get to these things, it's quite an interesting one at the time. But this is 2007, which is pre-something happening, right? Anyway. All right, so prediction is a big thing. So also measurement, right? So this is Kelvin. To measure is to know. If you can't measure it, you can't improve it. And this is very true, right? We tend to also then, on top of this, focus on the things we can measure, and they become the important things, right? And the things we can't measure fall away. He also said a lot of other things that weren't true, right? So there's nothing new to discover in physics. So that was probably, he would have been interested to enjoy the 20th century.
Before the quantum mechanics, right?
Yeah, that stuff. Chaos probably would have been surprising too. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to talk about happiness, and so that people have been doing this for a long time, but usually it's been people in very good situations. So Socrates and friends were, they would talk about flourishing, eudaimonia, and which sometimes meant alcohol and food, but generally they were talking about maximizing potential. Hedonistic calculus. So how do you maximize the what's the reason for doing something, right? So this is the idea of maximizing the well-being or happiness of as many people as you can. And the pursuit of happiness is a interesting line that appears in the in the US, right? So there was a couple of early drafts. It was life, liberty. It actually was property, from what I understand. So it was life, liberty, and property. And then they, some editing went on, and they ramped it quite up quite a bit. Property is a bit of a downer, sort of like. Although that's of great interest to a lot of people. All right, so.
Beer really on this list?
What's that?
This isn't.
No, beer. I think
So I did make this bit up, but this is actually true. Property really was there, and they yeah. So yeah, this is a reenactment of something that did not quite happen. Made it up. All right, so it's not just for the people who have lots of time on their hands and wealth and so on. It's actually what average people say they want, right? And it seems to there are studies of showing that it affects or it's correlated with people doing well in life in various ways. All sorts of studies, right? So these are countries and how they're doing in terms of this is GDP. These are well-being indices, and so you see that actually well-being doesn't go up, right? This money doesn't buy happiness thing. Although we tend to actually see a little bit of a variation more than was previously thought. So various countries now are trying to measure this. The UK does this. I think they interview 20,000 people every 3 months on the phone, call up and say, how happy are you? Yeah, exactly, right? So that's there's a very natural criticism that comes out there. Also other criticisms, right? So that what we're doing is Orwellian and what we might end up proposing is Huxleyan. Right?
Have people been telling you that?
Well, I just like to get that out in front before they do. But no, you get a little bit of this sometimes because, we're watching people. Of course, now with the NSA, we're not doing anything.
Yeah, comparatively.
Right. So that's not a big deal. But this is the problem if you end up just worrying about one thing, right? That you end up maximizing that, and it's not so good, right? So this is a bit of a problem with systems in general. People like to end up with just one number. I mean, silly things like what's the effective temperature and so on, as if you can't handle the fact that it's raining and it's right. I mean, and so pilots flying planes don't have one number in front of them,
right?
Which would not end well. All right, so we want to build this thing. This is our motivation years ago to build, and there were various things that came into our heads that made us go down this path. But basically, we want to build something that's fast, it's transparent in the way it works. It should be based on written expression. Although we have ventured a little bit into looking at images put on Twitter, for example, of whether people are smiling or not. And then it's also people put up pictures of not themselves, but anything they find on the web, which indicate something like a frowning cat or something. So that can be with facial recognition. That could be picked up. But basically text, there's so much text. Non-reactive is psychologists like to say, the sort of meaning we're not asking you how happy you are, right? So we're just looking because of this problem of people worrying. All right, so lots of other things we could do in there, but that's our idea. So this is, again, many years ago, just Googling so we're thinking about words, and we tried a bunch of things, I should say this, we tried a bunch of things based on natural language processing that just failed miserably, right? So we're feeding in blog posts and all sorts of stuff, and essentially, just flatline. We're trying to get out. There's an opinion finder was one of them, which would try to find out, would return a sentence and say this word in here is a plus or a minus. So it's acting at that sentence level, which is very hard and a noble cause, but we don't want to do that at all, right? We want to measure something like we're measuring the temperature. We don't really want to tell you what these little molecules are doing. All right, so I'm looking around and I think, well, someone must have measured the content of words, right, for emotion and so on. And so there was this study, it's a goofy looking thing, where they did these three, so valence, so this is excitement and dominance.
Is there a visualization?
Yeah, pretty awful, right?
I would call it awesome with air quotes.
Okay,
Awesome.
So this is the University of Florida, and they're asking, so it's actually two Likert scales. This is an important thing. So there's 0 is neutral, or what we'll call 5 eventually. This is 1 to 9. That's a neutral, and then there's the typical kind of extreme up here, a little bit, somewhat, very, and so in going in both directions, right?
So raw happiness, raw arousal, and raw dominance are the three little atoms.
Right, and this actually goes back to work in the 50s, the measurement of meaning.
Choice.
Yeah, so there's a book by Osgood and a couple of others summarizing work that was really done in the 50s where they So they gave people all these semantic differentials, which are these things, right? Rough to smooth, all sorts of things. And then asked them to describe or react to something.
And then they did some sort of PCA-like thing?
Exactly.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And so these three describe a fair amount. Yeah?
Okay.
So you'll see, so we'll come to something later on, and you've actually seen this bit, but we'll come to something later on where, in terms of facial expression, there are 6 kind of main ways of expressing emotion.
You use Chernoff faces as a visualization with this stuff at some point. Have you ever seen those?
No, okay.
You should look those up.
Okay, all right.
So the rough way that this visualization works is that, I mean, you can
Oh,
go
to
from you can go
manufacture.
from -1 to 1 in any category, but you do for each feature. So you imagine, say, eyes are a measure of blah. So you have a measure from -1 to 1 on eyes, and you have that for each facial feature, whatever you want. And so I wanted to, the dream I still have is to use these turn-off faces for some of these polarization measures on the political systems I study, and to get the actual scanned faces of the politicians to do this. And then so for each politician have their scanned face, but with their features adjusted with the measures.
Right.
But I think it's a really cool visualization. I think that for what you're studying, it might be particularly appropriate.
Yeah, it could work. I mean,
Anyway,
it's buried in our faces. We really give away a lot.
If you look that up, you'll see what I mean.
Yeah. So and we'll cover it later on. But there are these emotions, and it's not really a linear combination, but you combine them to produce more complicated feelings or expressions. All right. So this was what they did. Okay. But it's an interesting thing. So there's 1,000 words from a measurement point of view. So there's 1,000 words. They're chosen by psychologists as meaningful words, right? Pancakes is in there, church is in there, death, life, this is sort of an odd collection in some ways.
The car flattened him like a pancake. Is that going to come out as negative, I hope?
People like pancakes.
Yeah, I know.
We're never going to work at the sentence level. We're never, right,
No,
right.
probably
You can do that, but, Adobe algorithm can't do that, right? Okay. Here's a good example where it fails, right? So this is Billie Jean. So it's very simple what we do. You just count the words, the number of times words appear, and then multiply them by their average score from this, I should say, right? So they gave this survey to students, right? And asked them to rate these words. And they're very reasonable, right? So, murder and death, they're all at the top, and bad words, suicide and so on are down the bottom. But as I said, it's just 1,000 words, and they're a bit of an odd selection. So here's something that's just not been sorted out, and we've very much tried to do this, make this very clear. That if you want your language assessment tool to evaluate real language, it has to fit it properly, right? So there's a frequency of usage, very simple thing, right? The Zipfian frequency of usage that you have to accommodate, right? So if you just, in your 1,000 words, you just picked out a bunch of negative words because you're a psychologist and you think things are bad, then you would have a really weird, view. If you like, it's like having an instrument and you put a filter on top of it, right? So there's a very physical instrument-like aspect to this. And you would be filtering in a very odd way. Okay, so anyway, this is what we used to start with. So we have one paper early on where we use this so-called ANEW study result, the effective norms for English words. And so, all right, so you count up the words, you get an average. So Billie Jean gets some score, and it's well above neutral. Thriller would get something, and then all of Michael Jackson's work. 5 is neutral. So 5 is neutral. And so what I'll tell you later on is you never really see anything below 5. And it's for a decent enough corpus.
Right, but right. So you're not actually just getting. It's like these movie ratings, right? Jumping from 5 to 6 is not as hard as jumping from 6 to 7.
Right.
Okay.
So between 5.5 to 7 is where most texts end up.
Okay.
We had to kind of figure out why that was. So one of our problems was, okay, well, first of all, it's temperature-like, right? We want tons of words, and we'll give you a score like that. So we can't do tweets and sentences. Mm-hmm. And later we'll see that this instrument has a tunable kind of structure to it.
So
yeah.
These 3 vectors supposedly representing this positivity or negativity?
Yeah, right.
Are these predetermined?
Yeah, so that's based on just a survey, right? These scores here for the words. So that's from this survey back here, this guy. Mm-hmm. So you the word is just shown in isolation, and you rate it. And then they'll average things. So we did this later on in Mechanical Turk, and I'll show you. Mm-hmm. That actually agreed very well with what was done with students, and that agreed very well with the words being translated into Spanish and being tested on people in Madrid. So it's quite, it works quite well. And then we have all this stuff for, so we have 10 languages now, and you can actually translate pretty well between them. So I'll show you that later. There are more figures I can put in. All right, so this is music lyrics from hotlyrics.net. And so this is the trend over 50 years. And so they're not weighted by popularity. This is just taking a little bit in a sense, but we're just taking all the lyrics that have appeared. So, all right, so it's going down, and then people will have various responses to this straight away. But, you have to, why is that, right? So one of the nice things about our very simple measure is that, of course, you can look at the words that are contributing to scores, right? So this is the first thing, is just a robustness thing. So here we took out 250 of these 1,000 words, threw them away, rescored the thing, and then did that randomly a whole bunch of times. So at least we were able to show ourselves back then that it wasn't too dependent on the words. But we have to do a better job. This is how the genres break down. So this was, again, very useful to see early on. As I said before, we were just getting flat lines out of other measures. So gospel's here, heavy metal's down here.
Country should be way down, right?
Everyone's country and western.
People girl back, you get your dog back.
It's country and western is very complicated because there's a lot of tragedy.
But that's the one that has that specific reputation.
Yeah.
Of being.
Of
I don't
things
know
about
whether that's true or not.
It's kind of in the middle as far as our measure goes,
okay.
But
you play it backwards, you got the most positive song ever.
Yeah, the narrative arc is not good for right. So this sort of seemed to make reasonable sense, and again it's a little messy, but the stability of the genres was kind of interesting. And so the fact that this is going down overall is not that pop music has become sadder. It's that these are
more popular.
These new genres came into existence, right?
Genres are like
so there's a new type of music, but a new emotional niche was colonized by it.
And that's currently more popular among the set of songs that you wrote. Okay.
Well, it contributed, right? So it dragged this whole thing down a little bit. Yeah.
I wonder why metal is going up.
So I wouldn't
trust that.
Yeah, so this is a little sparse. I mean, we have some limit on the words here, and this is again this is like our very crude initial instrument.
Right.
Yeah. So we could, if we were not lazy, we would go back and do this properly.
Perhaps the variance is also important, depending on
Yeah. So, okay, that's a very important point. So there's enough words eventually in all of these things that by any kind of way of estimating the variance, there's nothing. And actually really it depends enormously on the words that you're choosing. So it's the filter you're putting on. So the filter you put on your instrument, you get a perfect view of the thing, in a sense, right? There's no kind of error in it. But you change the filters. Yeah. So I'll show you some of that later on. So this is a way. I have sort of an improved version of this, but we call them word shift graphs. So, and you can do this with anything, right? It's just as long as the words have frequencies and then have some scores for them. So we have something later on, if we get time, which is about so we've done something quite ridiculous, which is you look at tweets from states in the US, so we've geolocated tweets, and you look at whether they, if they contain things about food, right? So if they mention hot dog and whatever, then we turn that into caloric content and carbohydrates and fat. So so you kind of get a little food content thing for tweets in, say, Arizona for 2011. And it turns out that correlates quite well with obesity, right? So what people are talking about, you turn it into caloric content. Yeah. Anyway, so you could do a word shift graph for that as well, right? So you could do a word shift to see which things are. So this is after 1980 versus before 1980, and so you can see these words on the right, the blue ones are negative words that are being used more. So there are 4 types of things that could happen. So negative words could be used more, which is driving things down. So there's more hate and pain and sick and fear and hit and hell. So this is the metal stuff. There are positive words that are being used less, like love and baby and home and music. I mean, less is a slightly complicated thing. But there's also, after 1980, more lonely, less lonely, less sad, less trouble. This is sort of 60s kind of thing. But more life and God. So they're going the other way, right? So you see this for, say, Saturday versus Tuesday on Twitter, right? So Saturday is a more positive day than Tuesday. And if you do this little word diff thing, you see wedding and movies and like all these kinds of things, beach, right? And on the other side, you do also see hangover and bored and drunk, right? So there's some stuff going the other way. And you see the same thing for Christmas and Valentine's, right? So it's not all one way, and you can. Okay, so we did things like rank the artists, right? So these all kind of are reasonable.
These are the positive ones.
These are the ones at the top with some,
Can you show the ones at the bottom?
The bottom ones are fun.
Let's see.
Of course, some people quite enjoy these bands, so
I was looking for, Depeche Mode should have been in the bottom. It's meant.
Well, these guys really.
I haven't heard of most
really. Of these. Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. So
Yeah.
Metallica is well known for sure.
Right. Well, Slayer I've heard of. That's old school.
I believe Danforth has been to some of these concerts, which is
You got it. Surprise.
and survived actually. So, all right. So some other stuff we did. Blogger Age. It's beautiful work by Jonathan Harris and Sepp Kanvar. If you haven't seen this,
No.
WeFeelFine.org. Really, really lovely stuff. Yeah, that was one of the big inspirations. Anyway, we got blog data from them, and they were taking sentences that had "I feel" somewhere in it, or some version of that.
Peak. So
And people put their ages
so
in some of them. Yeah.
40 to
So yeah, 60 is pretty good.
40 to 60 is pretty good. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm looking forward.
So if you look, so it's teenagers. It's really bad. So this is middle school, right? This is the U.S.
Teenagers are.
So these are the the people in their 40s or 50s and 60s roughly compared to teenagers, and so they're more negative. This is a more complicated word shift thing. They're more negative because of this. Depressed, bored, lonely, alone, mad, pain, right? I mean, it's reasonable. It's reasonable. I mean, you get some words that are just wrong. Like sick is a complicated word because that can mean fantastic.
Right.
So fair enough. Some words are whatever. But generally, you sort of see the texture of this makes sense. It's not bad. Yeah. There are more complicated things in here. So these little guys here, they show you the sizes of the text. These ones here show you that they're, well, I think those colors might be messed up, but that should be blue and yellow. This is because they use more, many more negative words, relatively. Come back to that later. Male versus female, interesting thing, right? So basically the same. So the scores are about the same. What you see is, at least in this blog data set, that women use more emotional, they have a larger emotional spectrum than men, at least in the word expression. The average is the same. So you see that, so you can make this word diff thing, and you see that women say they're using love and these positive words more and these negative words more. The only word in the top 15 here that men use more is good, which is their sort of go-to emotional. It's good, it's good. You can say a lot with good. So, yeah, so that was kind of fun. All right, so we improved upon, there's just some older stuff, and I should talk quickly. So we reran all of this, the same kind of approach. It's not exactly the thing we used, but 1 to 9, right, so neutral in the middle. It's 10,000 words, 50 evaluations each. When we got the top 5,000 words roughly from Twitter over some period of time in terms of usage. So the and of, and they're all in there. RT is in there. Google Books, music lyrics, as we saw before, the New York Times for 20 years. So there's no one universal, right, corpus for any language. So you have to make a compilation. And this means that when we pull this thing apart, it'll fit at least these sources pretty well, and it fits other ones pretty well. All right, so we did this. So I don't know if you can read these. This is now we have 10,000 instead of 1,000, so it's 10,000. And beyond that, it's that they're frequently used. So these really fit, right? So in terms of the text in front of you, the matches you have is much, much higher than those 1,000 words, which had ski jump in it, for example. All right. Really, just, you're never going to get anything with that. Yeah. So laughter, happiness, so all these things. So there's a bit of a Tolstoy, Anna Karenina story, maybe, right, in this. And we want to get to that properly, which is, right, there's one, happy families are all happy in the same way, and sad families are sad in their own way. It's the opening quote, which I've butchered, but it's a sort of Anna Karenina. So there's just a lot of positive, rainbow is in there.
And just to clarify, laughed, and laughing are 3 separate words.
Yes, we don't stem, we don't do any of those things. We just feed them in, these words we used. And so that's actually useful because past tense tends to be a little bit more negative than present tense.
Okay, I see.
So you can't just, and some words change quite a bit.
Yeah, it's more, it's more just to point it out, just because.
No, it's very important. Yeah. So we know, and it's something we make a note of in our paper our initial paper, which right. Be careful with stemming. People like to stem. This is the bottom, right? So the bottom maybe is a little more diverse, but terrorist is down the bottom. So it's a US India kind of group that's rating this on Mechanical Turk. Death, bad things. The interesting one are the ones with high. So most of these have low standard deviation, which is this piece in the middle. Ones with high standard deviation. I think I've tried to make this nicer. So swearing, cigarettes, whiskey, so alcohol, so the various vices, porn is in there. Also ways to run large countries, so churches. So there's that. There's also, I think, capitalist is there, Islam is there, Christ is there, right? So these are things that people don't agree on, right? So
yeah, sure.
Yeah. And they have various kinds of distributions. The Beatles are in there for some reason. I don't know what happened to them. And zombies. Okay. So, so people, so AIDS is an example of a word that might have more of a meaning, like that, it was all lowercase, so maybe people didn't, they took it in different ways. Turns out so Zipf did this actually. If you look in his old book, he had this distribution of kind of everything, but one of them was the usages of words according to their meanings. And he forced students basically to read through newspapers and things and count up how many times a word was used in a particular way. And he had this result. Well, I've tried to test this so that the number of meanings scales as the frequency of usage to the power of a half over some range. But it's languages is a fantastic thing, right? It's a social tool that it's sort of our best social media thing, right? Mm-hmm. And it's invisible to us. It's sort of like water to fish or air. We use it all the time. We don't always reflect upon it. What I was trying to say there is the meaning distribution, the number of usages as a function of meaning, as if you organize the meanings by rank of usage, then really drops away typically. There are some that might have they're used in a couple of different ways pretty equally, but usually people have a fairly clear response when you give them a word. I could go on about what poets might say here, but anyway, all right, so we looked at Twitter, we've looked at a bunch of things, but Twitter is interesting for all sorts of reasons. We're not solely focused on it, but so this is breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Mentions of the words breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And this is just show you that it's, people, and of course companies and so on are tweeting away and all sorts of bots and so on. But there's kind of everyday activity is pretty good on Twitter. People are like, I am having breakfast. Thank you for the update. But, they're talking about what's happening right now.
This is why I follow 0 people.
I actually totally love Twitter, but it's great. For ideas, it's really good. Everybody's good. Yeah, all right. You don't have to.
I'm just being snarky.
It took me a while to warm up to Twitter.
I have a Twitter account and I specifically follow 0 people. I'm now just trying to see how many followers I get while still following 0 people. Because then people will throw me out of the data set because I follow 0 people.
Yeah. Okay. So this is hungry, starving, food, eating chicken. They're normalized so that they add up to 1, but they're obviously used in very different things. But this is not a good story for chicken, right? But they're pretty similar to each other. You see pizza is different, right? I mean, it's just looking at some basic things. Okay.
Wait. I like the little blip at, what is that, about 2 a.m.?
Yeah, so this is
When the bar's closed.
right here. Yeah, right. Let's start talking about it again.
Fair enough. I mean, fair enough, right?
No, it's good. It's good. So lunch, dinner, and then a little more.
Yeah, that's fair.
But the regularity is great. All right, so this thing is a big mess to look at. We actually have this site running, hedonimeter.org. We're adding things to it as we go along. Geography is a big thing that's coming. We need money to fund it, which is a problem. But
yeah, that's
how about that, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But we're trying to make something that's like the Dow Jones Index of Happiness, right? And so it is based on Twitter, but we can transform it into anything else. It's not really that. And we're adding 9 other languages. But this is English. This is the overall trend since we've had Twitter coming into we've been collecting since 2008. So all these big jumps here, this is Christmas, Valentine's Day. People talk about those things. This is Michael Jackson's death. So the positive things are all predicted, right? Or they're all annual events. We have to actually seem to organize ourselves to have kind of a happy days, right? Where we say nice things. We have to have Mother's Day and Father's Day. They're fraught days, but...
So one of the questions I have in general, because there's been a couple other groups that have done, gross national happiness and that, and I mean, I haven't looked at their stuff in detail, but how does your methodology compare to them, at least in terms of the results that you get?
Right.
Are there any interesting differences? And
so there are, and so well, I think one of the things is we continually keep at this thing of measuring words in a big cloud rather than some of them are trying to get out sentences.
Right.
And then add up the results from the sentences. I think there's general agreement. There's work by, I don't know how you say his name, Serbi maybe? I've been going back and forth with him about some of his stuff because he did some stuff with Google Books, but now he's got our stuff in there and he has another paper in it. It's working out pretty well.
I mean, so the ones I've seen, I guess there's a couple different groups. So I know there's the gross national happiness, which maybe YY might have been on one of those papers, but
really?
JP Onella and company, I think were on. They had like a one-page paper and a blog post. I don't know if they have an actual paper.
Oh, right, that's because I gave a talk at Barabazi's thing. That was with, is that with Sune?
Yeah, Sune's on
Yeah,
there.
yeah. I gave the talk and I said, yeah, that's right.
So there's that.
And then so they're like, oh, let's do a thing. Yeah.
There's Michael Macy.
It's not a paper. Okay, so Macy and Golder, that's a bit of a schmozzle, to be honest.
Okay, I mean.
And so you don't know what the words are
Right.
that is showing. They have that's
Okay.
shocking.
I'm not, no,
I don't think I don't think it disagrees. I was quoted in the Times actually with that because they wrote, or the New York, because they wrote about that, and it's Benedict Carey knew I worked on this stuff.
And then there's.
So there's some general agreement, like what I call, and I'll show you, the daily unraveling of the human mind, which is that as the day goes on, and I think you see it here very strongly on Twitter, that happiness goes down, emotional spectrum goes up.
Facebook data teams also posted.
Yeah, so there's pretty similar, I think, with some of that. But what we've tried to do is measure against things like Gallup poll and some, right, and I have some of that here, like peace indices and gun violence.
But there's broad agreement between the various people doing
I think so.
stuff. Okay.
Yeah. And that seems, I think, from what we've seen, the robustness of language is that it's going to happen, unless you really mess it up.
But the approaches are really different then.
They're somewhat different, yeah, for sure. Well, there are different word sets. For instance, there's this Luke one, LAWC, which has been around for a long time.
Okay.
But again, it has the problem of the ANEW. It's an odd selection of words relative to what people actually use.
Okay.
So we have ha 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 in our data set.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I will come to all these things. You're totally right. But
I was just wondering. That's all.
Yeah. So one of the big problems I would say is if people need to show these word shifts, right? So you can see why the score that you're presenting is higher than this one. And we also need to show, like, if it goes up 0.1, is your city going to be better?
Yeah. Well, I'm all in favor of being, precise.
There you go.
Like about the sausage that goes into the result.
Yeah.
I'm all in favor of that.
Well, so this is what's happened with this. I mean, there's so much to do, but we're trying to, and I've done lots of different things, everything, as you said, experiments to theoretical work, which is purely theoretical, which is unencumbered by reality, to this sort of stuff where we're trying to really quantify something, and then you find out all sorts of things. So this is the pattern for the day, so you can see it's right. So we basically reboot, right? We start in the morning and then we go down and then we come up again around about midnight if we're tweeting, right? So it's sort of different demographics in a way. This is swearing actually. So these are 5 very different swear words. Very different ones, and they all have the same pattern. So that goes up through the day, and so does emotional variance, as I was saying, right? So that we unravel, and we need to be rebooted,
So the one
like Windows machines.
The one on the left is the measure of happiness.
Control Alt Delete. Yes, this is happiness, and that's swearing. Yeah,
and
this is the George Carlin.
Right. And so people are least happy according to this measure right before midnight.
Well, yeah, biological midnight's around 4 or 5 a.m., right? That's generally when people are really, like, their body temperature's the lowest if they've been asleep properly. It's when people are starting to get up the next day, when the latest ones are going to bed.
So they're happiest at around 4 a.m.
It's actually about 6 and 7. So that, but they're also emotionally closed down, right? So it's a more limited day, limited time. So, but then it spreads out, and the overall, at least from Twitter, it goes down.
Right.
But
Yeah, I have a question about that.
Sure.
Do you see seasonal fluctuations?
So it's a very good question. So they try, I think,
Like, is it
Golder and
twilight
Macy.
or is it sun? Or sleep or something like that?
So from the Blogger stuff, we did get, so we found actually, as a function of the absolute angle from the equator, that it kind of actually went up and down. So yes, at the higher latitudes, it really goes down again. And that was a mixture of social and physiological. It's like words like sleep and so on are in there, and problems with things. And whereas it was more maybe social near the equator, which was kind of funny. We could redo that again, I think, in better ways. I have a whole other thing on when's the coldest day of the year, which is kind of ridiculous, right? So there's a solstice, and I have this thing called the telethon, and now we have all these plots of, we have 100 years of daily min-max, and so you can see the variation across the US in particular, which is, so it's 6 weeks later than the solstice in big regions. Anyway, that's another whole business, but that would tie it somewhat. You could see
I'd also be curious to see what people are like when they, you know, if you could somehow condition on people working odd-hour shifts, like night
Yes.
workers or something like that.
So I think it's potentially possible. You do search things. So what we're getting to some of that. We're getting to whether people say move, like if they've moved cities, to see if there's a transformation. I mean, there's just sort of an enormous number. There was some nice work recently. It wasn't happiness, but it was looking at people visiting restaurants, I think in New York City, and then looking for food poisoning. So they're tweeting. Do you see the one? Yeah, so you can see that and it's funny because we actually have a whole little project on this with the guy at Cornell, this flash mob research thing that we made up, which is where you bring a bunch of people in and work really hard for 3 days and try to produce a big paper in 6 months. So there we're trying to do Twittervention perhaps, where you interact with someone. Yeah, right. And so we'll see, it's tricky. Although the IRB, which is the, do not be Stanley Milgram or worse, so it seemed to just say, sure, that's fine. But we've got to make that work properly. But basically, we want to see if someone's at a restaurant or something and then say, we're going to send you nice messages for 4 weeks and see if that changes the way too. So there are lots of fantastic questions. And whether you can, based on how people move around or the things they say, whether you can reasonably determine what they are. I mean, one of the things we've noticed with those word shifts, for example, is that lots of things tweet now, right? So ambulances, weather stations. So there's a lot of stuff about humidity and rising and falling, and you have to take those out because they're not people. Accidents, burns.
I would just be very curious to know how much of these indices created are predicted by like glucose, like blood glucose. No, I mean,
really
I've been doing recently leads me to believe that my
children are 8 and 10 now, but as small children, it was very much, after a while you realize, would you like something to eat? It was really the exact right question. Or please eat this.
I mean, I've definitely noticed in myself that like when I don't eat is when I have depressive episodes. So usually, and I'll skip food for the sake of academic excellence, because I'm busy working on something. But then,
you need
10 hours later, my mood will be just like, okay,
It's very simple.
The word hangry comes to mind.
Hangry, yeah.
Hangry.
No, but I mean,
the wheels fall off, basically. Yeah, it's not good.
But actually, it was one of those things where, and I was also like, I looked at my own blog post and was noticing seasonal things, and I'm like, because I know that some of those years had more traumatic events than others, but
it's good to record.
October,
it's
when
good to record.
Gray skies in the UK is when I'm suddenly feeling depressed. Right? I'm like, there's something going on beyond personal things in my life here, right? But yeah.
Well, my personal thing is money can buy happiness, and it's called chocolate.
Chocolate's
which
good.
I think
as long as it's
eating chocolate for much of the day will make you, and maybe some nuts, but no, true. Actually, eating as all day keeps it, It's good. The 3 meals a day thing is actually not great. Okay, so this is another big piece of work. Lewis Mitchell is a postdoc who came to work with us on weather, but we've also forced him to do other things, and he's having a great time. So this is geography now, right? So cities and states, lots of data. This got a ton of press because it's comparative, right? So it was on the Today Show and all these sorts, on Ellen. It was on all these sorts of things. It was on Ellen, Well, they made a funny thing out of the whole thing, because Napa was the top place in terms of happiness.
Oh, right. That's
so
funny.
they went and got drunk at Napa, and
that's funny.
And I'll show you the other places. So from a state point of view, it matches up well. And I have those plots as well. There was a piece in Science that appeared a few years ago, and I've corresponded quite a bit with the author there, and who's at Warwick. What is his name? I feel bad that I've forgotten his name.
So the lowest one is Michigan?
Where they had Louisiana as number 1 in terms of happiness.
Okay.
So that,
so
you probably think that's odd, right?
So
because they're down a lot in a lot of other ways. Yeah, so Flint is in there. Right?
Oh, okay.
Things are not going so well. This is not,
Detroit,
perfect. Yeah, Detroit.
Okay.
Yeah. So Louisiana, Mississippi, Mississippi is down the bottom all the time.
Show it to people who live in these states and just laugh at them.
Okay, so all right. So these link to some of these videos. We actually have, this paper has a Twitter account associated with it. It tweets every day the happy and sad states or cities.
Cool.
Yeah, geography of happiness. So we have a paper with a Twitter account, which we thought was kind of fun. So this is compared, it's hard to see. So this is our happiness measure versus a bunch of other things. So this is gun violence. This is a health index, a peace index, the Gallup well-being, that's a survey-based one. So you can see it does pretty well. It's actually this kind of funny, it's an odd one. It's this behavioral risk assessment thing, which people have used to measure well-being, which doesn't correlate so well. So it only correlates with gun violence, the health ones, and so on. I mean, they're scattered. These are the 50 states, right? Each point is a state. So generally, we're doing pretty well. It's not bad. I mean, it's messy, and it's based on what people say on Twitter, which is insane. And of course, it's real time, so that's a different thing. All right, so that's that's something to dig into more. These are the ordering of the top and worst.
How much do you think using Twitter versus like the way more traditional polls are done, like Gallup, will bias the
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you're seeing correlations.
Yeah, we're seeing correlations. I mean, I think this is just something we just keep doing. We'll keep doing. Yeah.
If you're calling people versus looking at Twitter.
Right. So the representation problem, it's always there. This is Twitter. I mean, that's kind of what we say, and I think it's got to the point where it's a voice in itself, and just because it's used all the time too, elections or whatever. They're like, Twitter said this. We have no idea what it means. But, so it's worth sort of quantifying like what's in the media, and that's one of them. Well, I mean, it just depends. So we've been able to correlate what we found with just word usage with demographics for about 400 cities. So you can kind of in principle build something that will predict obesity rates, like the number of single parents, the number, all the demographics you can think of, right? The number of houses with 4 bedrooms. Some of these things correlate well with Twitter, and some don't. So you can just again sort of explore and see how well these things stack up. There you could build some nasty little thing that does it, right? It's sort of inscrutable kind of system that the computer scientists love to build, right? That would make these words turn into these scores, and we've taken a very simplistic approach, of course, but because we're not very smart.
I think a lot of the polling is constrained to only households that have landlines.
So that's like really problematic, yeah. They're only just adjusting to cell phones recently. There was a piece of work recently that went this extra step and found the people that they couldn't find with the first interviews, and showed the differences in their behavior. The men they couldn't reach behaved in this way, and women, behaved in this way. And of course, right. The people who answer the survey are the people who answer surveys, right? So there's a lot of decrying of it's Twitter and so on, but psychology. You've used Psych 101 students for unimaginably forever.
Trying to get at like the fact that you're comparing with Gallup, which historically has used landlines. Like whether you'd actually could pull out particular differences because you're having like a different set of people.
Oh, I see.
Sort of like,
I guess if we could dig it, maybe Gallup, if we had more, they're a bit funny with giving data away. If we could get more nuanced data from them, that would be the thing to do actually, right? So if you could get by age and so on, you could, it's true that of course Twitter skews younger, and Twitter has bots and things on it that aren't humans, and it has media and so on. So it's a bit of a melange of stuff, right? But so I think, you could dig. So all of these things, yeah. It's totally good, right? Okay. So Napa was at the top. We've got a lot of California and so on. These are the happy ones. They're all thrilled. Some of them talked about it. We had like Times Square. They put up an ad for the weekend that this came out and said that Times Square was the happiest place in New York, which we didn't say, and there's all sorts of weird things happen. This was a bit unfortunate. These are the guys down the bottom. So Beaumont, Texas was down the bottom. So, by a fraction, right? So they end up being the one that's kind of called out. And we got a lot of, so we have a blog, and we got a bunch of messages on the blog from people saying they're from Beaumont or had lived there. And the majority of them said, correct. So it is hell. Then there was this kind of stilted one a bit later on that said, it is 1 hour from the coast. It is it's obviously the wrong answer. It is a lovely place to live, blah, blah, blah. It seems to be kind of the right little bit of patchwork. Funny. Yeah. Flint is in there. There was Waterbury, Connecticut. So there was a lot of local television about this, and there was a local television piece on this. Well, they went out and interviewed people and said, we got this rating, what do you think? And they're like, yeah, it's awful. And so they showed it. And they finished the piece by saying, we're going to go to a chocolate factory. And they do. They go to the local chocolate factory and they just talk about making chocolate.
Nice.
And they're like, see you later.
That's-
You know, I mean, this is not great. We're not, you know, we don't want to make him feel bad. But this is better than, this is again, adding to the spectrum of things you could measure about places. And the lieutenant governor of Louisiana got up and said, I don't like this study. Because this other study had Louisiana as number one. So they're, you know.
Yeah,
This is a word
nice
shift.
tendency
It's
of
too much.
people not liking studies where the results are not what they wanted to see,
Yeah, including scientists, right?
including scientists.
Yeah. So this is why Beaumont is, you know, there's a lot more swearing, but it's also that there's more kind of local, smaller words. So there's family stuff. It's just, there's things are a little more closed down. And you see, as you go out to places that are happier, they're talking about films and cafes and so on. I mean, it's right, it's not a great story, right? It's a socioeconomic thing, but it again matches up with this. Also, so this is just tweets. You've seen millions of these, I'm sure.
Frank
But,
et al. Is also your paper?
yeah, so it comes out this
Sorry, just
week.
because I don't recognize the name.
Yeah, so he's a great undergrad, became a grad, really good kid. We're going to try and send him to MIT. So this matches up with Marta's work.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's more detailed in terms. It's more because this is how people move around, right? So you find their local, you find where their center of mass, and then you orient the thing properly, and then you overlay all these people, and people have different trajectories, of course, but this is sort of a composite thing. So Marta Gonzalez had this great paper a few years ago, based on cell phone stuff.
Is this the Levy flight one, or you mean a different one of the papers?
Did they have Levy flights? That was
It's one of their papers. The thing is, they've had.
it's true. The
keep
first one that was in
publishing
Science or Nature.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
The
So,
first one.
but is the paper?
The
you're
first
referring
one
to-
was just this sort of universal picture of how people move around with zip distributions for a number of places they
You're
went
talking
to.
about a different one then, a different paper.
I think that paper was the one that they used to then.
I could get it, but I
try
don't
to
have a
go
connection.
back and fit the stuff that Brockman had done. So they, I think that was the first one where they were presenting it as like
This
loss of human travel or something like that.
The radiation model one, or not that one?
That's
Because that one we've looked at because.
Simony.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that one we looked at because
A
we
friend
were
of
thinking
Bagra's.
about that for the project.
Yeah.
Sang-Hoon will tell you more about it, but,
Okay. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
we needed to look at
Yeah.
that.
There was that one, which right. So yeah, Brockman's had the first thing, and then there was.
No, I think the 08
This is
one,
it,
that
the
is the
HP.
Levy flight one. The 08 one, I'm pretty sure is the Levy flight one. Okay.
Okay. Right.
So it's just the same groups had a lot of different papers on similar topics. I just wanted to just put in my head.
Time scale is actually quite different about this migration
Yeah,
study
yeah.
versus this daily movement.
Yeah, well, we'll
Yeah.
talk about that later. But
So this is great, which is nice, and and then we do this thing, right? So we grow fonder as we wander. Is the ridiculous thing about it. So average. This is average word happiness. This is distance from where people are centralized, and this is then as a function of the radius of gyration. So how much they move around. So people who move around further appear to have happier kind of content in their tweets. It's not a big variation, but it's there. Lots of other things. This is correlating obesity with this is not happiness, this is just word usage. So McDonald's, eat, wings, hungry, heartburn, and ham are words that correlate with obesity levels positively. Ones that correlate negatively, these are food words. So cafe, sushi, brewery, restaurant. There's actually a lot of alcohol in there. These are people who actually don't really eat, right? So brunch is in there. They mean brunch, not the brunch that, with corn dogs or anything, just the brunch where you get together. This is then the caloric content of tweets, that ridiculous thing I was talking about before. And it seems to be kind of fit around the Mississippi River, which is where there's more stuff. Vermont actually has a large amount, but apparently that's because they talk about bacon all the time.
oh, well,
The hippies that talk about, not hippies, hipsters, thank you.
But if you saw
Ex-hippies.
the movie "Thank You for Smoking," it's the great state of Vermont will not apologize for its cheese line is in there. I mean, that would.
I haven't seen that.
You should see
I know I should. I
That's
know I
William
should.
H. Macy uttering that line too. So it's.
Excellent. I should. How are we doing? We've run out of time.
I should look, but probably. Can someone?
I have this really nice bit I want to show you.
5 to 1.
Okay, let me look. Okay, so how we behave, right? How we should behave, right? So there's everything. I have this line here. We have everything from Jainism to Ayn Rand, right? We should be selfish. What economists think, or eventually think after 4 years of college, right? So that we have this great range of ways of organizing ourselves and talking about how humans behave, how we should behave naturally. And so that's a bit of a huge build-up. But the idea is, well, look, let's look at what are these. We've been measuring this happiness thing. What's this distribution look like? And so if you look at English, this first 10,000 words. There's actually, so this is neutral in the middle. There is actually a positive bias, right? And you can actually say this is real because we're getting words by their frequency of usage, right? So, right, you can't do this otherwise. So then this is looking at the four corpora. We can't actually put them together like that. That first picture you can't really do. But if you look at the four corpora that went into that original study, so it's Twitter, Google Books, Music Lyrics, and New York Times, they all have, so yellow means above neutral, they all have this positive bias. These symbols here show you what the first 1,000, the next 1,000, and so on, what their distributions are like. So it's actually somewhat roughly invariant with respect to frequency of usage, which is quite surprising. So rare words have this positive bias, and common words have this positive bias. These are jellyfish plots, which show you, right? So I made up that term. I actually got it in a paper. It says jellyfish plots. Yeah. Just pretended it was a real thing. Anyway, so that's the distribution on top. This is the ranking of the word. So every little point is a word, and then there's a little window of 500 words, and we plot the deciles and then run that window down. So you get jellyfish tendrils. So this is to show that those distributions don't change too much as you go down. This is a more elaborate one with words on it, because that's fun, right? So laugh is over here. That's not used so much in the New York Times. Very positive word. Suffer, rape is here, anger, these are bad words. Death, funeral, very common, of course, there's death notices. Love, and what else is in there? Grandmother, mother, positive words up here. Okay, fine. So, millions of those. This is, So that's the first thing I showed you, that thing. What we do actually is we throw away the middle words when we construct our instrument, right? So we take a little window and we expand that window and dial it around. And this is a time series from Twitter where we're taking away these words and we're not using them anymore. So we throw away the. It's a neutral word. We throw it away. And we throw away some of these words that have high standard deviation, the swearing and so on. So, various nasty words are in here because they're very ambiguous or people don't agree on them. And so we can dial this little window. What you see is that these time series, I'm saying that they all are qualitatively very similar, but the contrast goes up, right? So that if you throw away a lot of words, you're only using a few words now, but you see a really big variation. You see that weekly variation. And this little thing here shows you basically that if you throw away the middle, like 4.5 to 5.5 up to about 2.5 to 7.5, you get consistent time series, but they have different scales. Right, so it's like taking a picture and dialing up the contrast. You still see the same picture, but it gives you the boundaries or the shapes. So it has a physical instrument aspect to it, which is very nice. I'm not going to show you this. This is crazy. I did want to show you these other languages. All right, so these are jellyfish plots for other languages, and this is great. Actually, we'll finish. So this is German Google Books. So you see, so Hitler is here, right? I mean, this makes sense. If anyone can read Arabic, they can tell me what this says. I'd spent a long time trying to make, I wanted to get true type fonts in there, but I couldn't do it. Can you read Arabic?
Yeah, we've actually got quite a few
Yes.
cultures represented in the group.
Good.
Okay, that's God, that's love.
So
Sensible. Father,
mm-hmm.
of better, girl, woman, all on that side.
Mm-hmm. So they're common words that are positive, and these are common words that are negative.
There's killing,
mm-hmm.
death, devil,
So
murder.
quite reasonable. Yeah, right. So this is actually from movie and TV subtitles. That's the corpora that we have. Yeah. So quite different corpora. We have 10 languages that spread around the globe. So we have Portuguese, Brazil, so evaluated by Brazilians as well. Right. We got this. We spent a lot of money on this. It's kind of crazy. Chinese Google Books. There we go. Similar thing. It's a bit tighter. You can see the jellyfish tendrils are tighter. This is great. This is Brazil. So I had to look these up when these first appeared, all these KKKs. And that's ha ha ha. Right? Right? Yeah. And it's easier to type. So they have so there's actually a distribution for ha ha and ha 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 and ha.
We gotta take the
It has it decays as some sort of power law.
You gotta put the con machine on that.
Just gives the power. Okay. But this one's so much easier to type.
Yeah, I know. We could put the con machine on it.
I want to show you this one. This is Korean Twitter. They're the only ones I think that have an anti.
We've got someone.
Okay, all right, yes.
So let's.
There's an anti ha ha ha.
That's a swear word. Yeah, that's a very strong swear word. Yeah.
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's repeated,
no,
right?
That one.
Oh, here?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah. And this is crying, right? Isn't it like anime,
it's
right?
A shape of
Yeah.
tears. Actually.
Yeah, you see, like in the anime cuts. And
you
stick them together, right? You don't put.
Yeah, that right one.
And this is ha ha ha.
Yeah, that's equivalent to KKK.
Yeah. Very nice. That's a really long one. So this is like kind of a rant. This is the way I read the script.
And suicide.
Yes.
And the
Yes.
rape.
Yes. Bad words.
Yeah.
Yes. So it makes sense. This is from Twitter, actually. Yeah, right. Of course, but with Twitter gives you these great words that you would never get in more stately things like books, or would take 10 years to catch up, I suppose. Yeah. So reasonable. Yeah. So this was, somewhat surprising. And if you put them all, so we can order them like this. So Spanish is up the top here, but this is a Google web crawl. Portuguese, this is in terms of their median, right? So they're ordered by median. The big story is they're all positive.
Right.
There's a positive bias built into this.
Some of them have noticeably smaller spreads, though.
And then right. And so this plot would show you the spreads.
How are the words rated in other languages? Just the surveys again?
Yeah, well, so we didn't use Mechanical Turk. We went to a translation service, which is quite sophisticated. And actually, to pass the test, to be able to then rate things, you have to listen to things and answer and so on. It's actually based in Australia. We got it through. Anyway, it's a complicated thing. But it's
just people judging the word.
Yes. Oh, yes. Same setup. But now we have a Mechanical Turk can kind of go wrong, because people are trying to do things as fast as possible. But this was really well organized. So you see, right, Portuguese. The emotional spectrum is wider for Portuguese and Brazilian. And then there's an ordering like this. So Russian books, at least, were sort of the most closed in terms of variance. But overall, the story is of positivity, right? Which is we're social organisms. We're happy to say that, but it's just kind of good to see this buried in our language. That right, much as we talk about all the other possible ways of behaving, that there's a reflection of basically a sort of pro-social kind of nature, which fits in. Then you can there's all psychology stuff that fits in with the sort of there's like broaden and build. There's different things. Like what are positive emotions for, right? Well, they lead you out. They help you go towards things. And negativity is about not entirely, but just being safe, right? You withdraw and you stop. And so of course you can look at how this changes over time, how the words we use and how we value them will change over time. But surprisingly robust. And we did we used Google Translate to translate words back and forth, and you see them lining up pretty well. And some words, of course, translate strangely between languages, but generally speaking, if you wanted Norwegian, for example, you could translate into Norwegian. It would be crudely okay.
So how long a sample would you need in order to...
Oh my God, I've got all this other stuff, but we're good. What's that?
How long a sample would you need? Like if you were just collecting, these words, is say a week or a year or what gives you?
So for Twitter, we were doing things like years. Yeah. We have, I think we have 50 billion tweets now. Yeah. It's kind of horrible. It's like many tens of terabytes of data. So it's streaming in all the time. Sometimes things explode.
So could you forecast the Arab Spring, for instance?
Yeah, so everyone wants to do that, and the military would love to do that. And I don't know. There are some people who the problem is there are people who claim they can, and they can't. But they're going to Washington, for example, and saying, here's my magic black box. There's certainly people.
There's these visualizations that have been published in newspapers that have been called analysis.
Yeah, it's very problematic.
To me, it's just it's a visualization.
Yeah, it's very problematic. I mean, so look, there are decisions that have been made in Afghanistan that lead to people dying that are based on, black box models. It's not good at all. So we've fought very hard to keep it all very transparent. This is how it's measured. You can look at it. If things are predictable, I guess we'll find that out. But so far, that overall timescale, that overall picture, I should say, of Twitter was showing you that big positive events are all annual events, and the negative ones are not predictable. They're all exogenous shocks. So they're natural disasters, things like riots and so on, that people talk about in complicated ways. Death of bin Laden is an interesting one because that is a very negative thing on our. People always get excited about that. I had this people saying, but we saw people in Times Square celebrating. I mean, I lived in New York City through all that, and so the thing is that's the one day that I think that people find odd. What it is with this simple thing is it's a character who's a negative character, and a very negative thing happened to them. That doesn't make that's still the texture of that day is negative. Yeah. There's a whole lot, we did other emotions. I'll show you that quickly because it's fun. So earthquake, this is people rating earthquake, the word anger, disgust, sadness, fear, surprise, and happiness. And so these are these different facial expressions. These are my joke versions for them. The ooh, the wah, the eek, the wow, and the ha. And these are these faces from this great book, which is Making Comics. This guy, Scott McCloud. And then there are a few here. So we've still got some work to do because I think our second effort with Mechanical Turk messed up. So war and torture have these shapes. Laughter has this shape, a little bit of surprise. Lottery has surprise and happiness. Veterans has some positivity and sadness together, which you can't get out of a single measure, which is kind of pity, actually. Like you can have those two things together. So that's been an interesting thing for us to figure out. Rotting is more on the disgust scale. So if we can do that, then we'll have different, expand the spectrum out. And I like this set of emotions because they seem physiologically based.
Okay.
And all right, sorry.
All right. Well, so first of all, thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks for having me.